underneath the surface that someone could be using to their benefit. And there's actually fossil evidence in the phosphorus mines and in the springs that animals have been using these, and somewhat prehistoric animals had been using these passageways for, millions of years before Florida was Florida.
Briefly, just real briefly, I didn't talk about the nesting and different things. They're intelligent. We're intelligent. When we move to a new environment, if we need to dig down, we dig down. If we need to build up, we build up. If there's bears, we go high. You know what I mean? They're also smart. You know who else is smart? Chimpanzees, gorillas. In certain areas, they'll nest on the ground. In other areas, guess what? They'll nest in the trees. They got a leopard to worry about. They're going high. They don't have leopards. They'll nest on the ground. And the caves, yeah, there's caves more central, but they can dig down if they want, but they might drown in certain places, right? But definitely, I think that they can do a little bit of anything.
I definitely agree. This is what I've been waiting to get to. This is my favorite thing. Can you guys talk about some of the compelling eyewitness accounts that you might have taken from people in your research, or they could be your own, some of the things that you've experienced? What are people encountering when they're encountering skunk ape here in Florida?
Sorry, I napped for a minute over there. So the most famous sighting, or a couple of famous sightings in Florida, would be the Shealy sighting, which you guys are familiar with. I'll let Mike talk about that a little because he had some first-hand experience on the recreation and stuff. And then someone mentioned the Sarasota sighting of the orangutan back in 2000. So those are a couple of documented eyewitness sites. Personally, I haven't had a sighting, but like I said earlier, I have found prints. I do have audio of a knockback, so that's kind of exciting. So, those kind of things lead me to believe that, they're real and they exist within the state, especially in the areas we discussed earlier.
Well, I've got another question after this, but this kind of rolls into it. So let me just throw that out there before we move on to Mike. Some of the things that people are experiencing, the behaviors, is it similar to other areas where you're seeing stick structures, people are reporting stick structures? Are you seeing tree breaks? Are you seeing wood knocks?
I would say 100%. I can't attest to other areas other than what I've seen and read, the Pacific Northwest, etc. But we see what we would allege to be stick breaks or tree breaks. I found tree structures, in the middle of nowhere. The Boy Scouts are not there. They're not going where I'm going. So I would say yes, there are definitely the tree structures, the tree breaks. We've been finding sometimes, I want to call them glyphs, like X's on the ground, or, unnatural phenomena dealing with sticks or structures and things like that. Stuff you wouldn't find in nature, at least I haven't prior to doing my investigations.
Awesome. What about you, Mike? Compelling stuff that people are telling you, things you've experienced, and talk about the tree structures.
I can tell you about one that me and Caleb had.
Absolutely.
We were in one of our active areas, and it was just me and him. It was about probably an hour before dark, 2 hours before dark. And there's a berm you have to walk up, and it goes through the middle of a swamp. And it was, I don't know if it was built like an old fire break or what it was, but it made it high, so we were up elevated. And when you make vocalizations out there, it carries really well. And I had him out there. You want to do it? He's out there making these little hoos, and I do one. And then out in the distance we hear one reply back. And then at another angle, there's one doing it over there. And then another spot. They were triangulating with all different areas. We did this for about 30 minutes, back and forth. They're getting closer and closer. The hoos are getting really close. Until we're sitting there and about 50 feet away, he thinks it's 15, but 50 feet away from us, something let out a yell. It sounded like an obese barn owl. He got scared. The first time he really got scared. It startled me too, but him, he didn't know what to do. It sounded like it was right next to us. But it was pretty cool. They came into us, That's happened more than once.
I know you showed me some pictures of some compelling footprints and stuff you've cast. Are you guys seeing tree breaks, tree structures, and are you hearing wood knocks? Is that part of what you're hearing?
We definitely do. The wood knocks are more of it's a one here, one there. It's just one every once in a while. I don't know, after we've been here, it almost sounds like it could be their mouth more than anything too sometimes. It's just, and, sorry, okay. The wood structures around us are completely different Central Florida than when you get down towards the Everglades. I don't know if it's a different species is changing or what they're doing, but they're not as creative, it seems like. There's not as much. You get up in our area and we've got some sophistication to the structures we're finding, like it's really cool, different structures. And we've started noticing that all the tree breaks, they're usually on a trail, right next to a trail, and it's pointing in a direction. And you're gonna find another one on that trail if you keep going. So it's definitely a lot of tree breaks in our area, tree structures.
It's interesting. Good.
Well, we had the same thing with arches. We'd find an arch.
Yeah, arches.
And then look ahead, let's say 50 to 100 yards, there's another arch. And then there's another arch. There was a time me and Jimmy found this new area we want to check out. So we go in and we found, and this is what's amazing with the arches is, and people say, oh, it's just an arch, when it's the shape of a horseshoe, it's a very tight arch.
And down to the ground.
And the end is shoved into the ground. It's not held down, it is shoved into the ground. And you look at it and you're like, what could have done that? And you're talking a tree that's 20 feet tall. It's as big around as my leg.
What about the ones that look like spring traps?
Right. Well, we found one we videotaped where it was down on the ground and another branch was at an angle holding it down. Jimmy hits it with his stick, hitting it, and it doesn't move. It was purposely done that way to hold it down. And it was a great day. We found this new area, we wanted to check it out, and right off the bat we were getting these signs, arch after arch after arch. And then we saw this weed line, these weeds, and it looked like a tunnel. So we said, hey, let's go through that tunnel, So we go in there, sure enough, find another arch. And so we walked around in there for a little bit. We come out the same way we're coming. Now, excuse me, because if you watch the video, this is the first time I cursed on my YouTube channel. And I've only done that twice. As we were coming out, I'm behind Jimmy, and he's running parabolic ahead of me. But behind me, I hear, whoo, 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 just like that. And you hear me go, that sounded like an effing gorilla, So I'm turning around, and Jimmy's like, where? And I'm that fast, I'm pointing it right where we left. So it made me feel like when we were in there where that arch was and stuff, this thing was there. It was watching us. And when we left, I think it wanted us to come back. I think it was like, hey guys, over here, But the structures are important. We like I said, there's no experts. We can't determine exactly what these arches mean. But they do mean something. When you find one, and then you find one further down, and you find one further down, we even went around the area, found an arch, and Jimmy looked at me and goes, what direction does that point in? And I was like, right back to the other arches. So there's something to them. Structures are important. They're not the tell-all, answer-all. But it's one of those things that says, you're in the right area, okay? You have to take all the accumulated material, put it together, and it's like a deer hunter. Like you brought it up earlier, I was an avid hunter, okay? And when you're deer hunting, you're looking for deer. You're not paying attention to anything else. You're looking for deer, okay? That's why so many hunters will say, I've never seen one and I've been hunting for 30 years. Well, you weren't hunting for Sasquatch, you were hunting for deer. That's what you're focused on, okay? The late, great Kerry Arnold made a comment one time. He said, you're looking for Sasquatch until you find a snake. Okay? Now you're snake hunting because you're like, I just found a snake. It's the same thing in deer hunting. You're looking for deer, you're looking for planks and rubs and scrapes. You're not focused on Sasquatch. But once you change your mindset and say, I'm going to focus on Sasquatch, you'll start seeing things, hearing things, smelling things that just don't make sense. And that's what opens up that Pandora's box, that rabbit hole, is I got to find answers. Why was this arch made that way? How come I'm 215 pounds, and I could not move that tree? But something did. See what I'm saying? That's the key, finding the answers.
I agree, man. It's one of the things that fascinates me the most about this because as far as the tree structures, I love to hear that you guys are seeing the same thing in Florida that I saw. I went on an expedition last year with Todd Standing up in Radium. I know he's controversial, folks. I was up there last October. We found tons of interesting things. We found tree structures that I would have never imagined. 80-foot trees propped up on 120-foot, 300-foot tall trees that humans couldn't have done 18 miles deep in the woods. There's something to that. I found them on and near my property in North Carolina. 9-foot tall teepee structures. Same bends that you're talking about, arches, arched over and stuck under a log. That's not normal. It doesn't happen. So there's some significance there. We just got to figure out what it is. All right, back to you, sir. It's your turn for the question.
Two sightings really that changed me and the man that I am today. He might hate me for it. One of those sightings was Mr. David Shealy's. He's sitting over there. He's trying to hide. But if you haven't seen his sighting, if you haven't seen his video, do yourself a favor, check it out. But before that, I had seen something as a young boy at the Babcock Scout Ranch, the Boy Scout Ranch. In fact, I wasn't the only one. I was there with 5 other people that night that had seen it. But it changed everything, and I became what is known as a scientific skeptic. I just had to know what I saw that day. When I saw his video, I finally had trajectory, and I went to school, Brevard College in North Carolina, and went to Western North Carolina, and moved on from there to go to study zoology, but I never got away from what I had seen that day from those sightings. And thank you for that. So if you guys haven't seen those, check out David Shealy. But the sighting that I had at Babcock Scout Ranch changed everything. We had seen something very, very clearly that night that I had never seen before, and to this day I've never seen again. And they tried to say it was a number of different things, but I couldn't prove it. And to this day I'm trying to prove it, and I love the trying. But there's the things that we've seen in Western North Carolina, as well as our friend has said, those structures that I've seen that was out towards Pisgah National Forest. I couldn't have done it. You know, there's no way I could have done it. And I'm afraid of heights. I don't want to climb that high. So I don't think anybody's climbing up and doing those things.
Awesome. Tim, what about you, sir? What are you finding as far as what people are reporting, the behaviors? Are you finding stick structures, tree breaks, wood knocks, those kind of things?
Yeah, with the structures, I find a lot of structures that I believe are marking energy. And then I'm finding other structures that I think are like communicating with others. Just like if a hiker, if you're out hiking and you take some tree branches and you make a little arrow on the trail, so when you come back, you know which way to go. So I think some of that is the communicating with each other, directions. And there's also some tree structures that I found that I think are pointing at certain directions. And I'll take a compass and get a reading on it, an azimuth reading. And then I would look it up on Google Earth and see what I was pointing to. And I'm finding some that are pointing towards camp areas. I found one that was pointing towards 2 schools, an elementary school and a middle school. And it's only woods all going up to those schools. And I think they're going up to those schools and watching the kids play. So I'm finding things like that and actually trying to do like scientific experiments and trying to figure out what they're actually meaning.
It's amazing that you mentioned that. That's one of the things we did in Radium when we found the tree structures. The last day before we left on the expedition to go home, we brought a compass out. One of the huge trees was directly north-south. There was another one facing directly east-west. It was spot on. I mean, it wasn't off like a degree. I couldn't have went out there and done that. I don't know very few people that could have come out there and just cold turkey, even with a compass, set it up the way that it was set up. So there's definitely something to it. Chris, you get the last word, man. Are you hearing that kind of stuff? Do you have anything to say on that?
Yeah, my focus is on the little ones, not the big ones. So my first-hand experiences are also more in the realm of puckwudgie. So rather than take up the time here, if anyone wants to come over and talk puckwudgie to me, although I will say one thing in that as I've been doing my research, a lot of it has tipped on cult activity, both in the Freetown State Forest, and the Hockomock, and the Bridgewater Triangle, if you guys know anything about that, and of course here in the Ocala and the weirdness here and its connection to different organizations. One thing I've noticed is that these markers you're talking about are classic cult type things, and it made me think of it when you were saying it, they were pointing to the schools as well. And I'm not sure if we're looking at something natural or something supernatural or something more nefarious, but there is a direct correlation between high concentration of Bigfoot sightings and locations where cults seem to find their way into the woods. And so as you guys were talking about it, and then you were saying the school, my mind was clicking off going like, that's classic, marking it so you think that it's extremely natural, so unless you know what you're looking for. And it would kind of just naturally, if you were in the frame of mind of a paranormal investigator, you see one thing. And if you were in the frame of mind of a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot or a skunk ape, you filter it through that. As you're telling me that stuff, I'm totally thinking like, oh yeah, those are cults marking their territory, marking off to the deep inner stuff. So
Awesome.
I won't talk too much more about cults right now.
We're running short on time. I'm hoping we can get to 2 more questions, but I'm definitely going to ask this one. This is one of the things that I think is very unique to Florida that I love. And I wanted to pose this question to you guys as far as your research is concerned. How does the presence of the species that are here in Florida that are native, like alligators, panthers, big snakes, I think Richard mentioned snakes earlier, how do you think that affects, or does it affect the skunk ape in the wild? How do you think that affects how they survive? Do you think it affects areas that they go into versus areas that they don't?
So, in my opinion, I think the skunk ape would be the apex predator out of all of them. The Florida panthers become really non-existent, so that would be the other major predator, and then the bears more north than where I am that you see. So gators are always there, and you know, we as Floridians, we just live with them. We cohabitat with them, as I believe the skunk ape does. You know, the big snakes recently that you find in the Everglades, again, might be issues to pythons, but again, I believe that the skunk ape is the apex predator, so there is no real conflict between other predators. And then we mentioned food sources earlier, so the hogs, like Wayne Tim mentioned, the deer, or you know, would be the food sources for the apex predator.
What do you think, Mark?
I would agree, and I've noticed that all the areas that we go to, and that we spend a lot of time in, there are no other predators in that area. Wherever I'm getting signs of a skunk ape or a Bigfoot where they've been, there are no other predators in that area. I don't think there is competition. They're just too bad at it.
What say you, sir?
I would definitely say they're a keystone species. I think they would occupy a similar niche that we did as hunter-gatherers. I'm not thinking they're going head-to-head on confrontations with American black bear or American alligators. They're using their wits to stay clear of those animals. Doesn't mean they couldn't hunt them if they wanted to, but I've always believed that they're an omnivore, taking advantage of whatever they can feed on, just like we would have. So do they affect the environment? They are the environment. You know, they make the rules out there. I imagine as an animal with high order intelligence, you know, they're occupying a similar niche that we would as hunter-gatherers, so they're using their wits, but yeah, they could definitely take on those critters if they needed to, I imagine, very easily. And I don't think they would be considered prey except for the very young. They might be considered prey. Now, the Burmese python problem, that's a little different. I'm out there wrangling these snakes all the time, and you know, I think likewise that might be something that would be a bit of a threat, but they might be eating the pythons now too, so they might be an asset in the fight against invasives for all we know. But yeah, they're a keystone species, for sure.
What say you, Richard?
Well, really on this subject, yeah, especially, I agree, it's an alpha, it's definitely the alpha predator out there. But I want to remind everybody, I don't want anybody scared to go in the woods. Everybody should go out there and enjoy it. I say it all the time on my channel. Get off the couch, get out there and enjoy nature. If you look at the majority of sightings are passive. Even though it's an alpha predator, it is passive. It's a glimpse, it's a moment. It looks at you, you look at it, it moves on, you move on. You know, it's not this thing that's out there to attack humans, kill humans, and stuff like that. Are there times that there's aggressive behavior? Absolutely. But I think you get that same aggressive behavior on any wild animal that you've done something, or you've invaded something, or you know, whatever, you're drawing attention. But I don't want people afraid. I don't want them to go out there and be afraid of the woods. I want them out there exploring. Because like you said, RPG said, we have a new generation of kids growing up. They should take this topic seriously and go out there, take your cell phone that your mom and dad bought you, and go out there and start filming nature. Start off filming rabbits and squirrels and birds, but enjoy yourself. Become one with nature. Don't be scared. Don't be afraid. I enjoy it. I go out every weekend and I enjoy it. And every day I get home, I'm thankful to God that I got one more week to go back out there next weekend and do it again. You know,
Except for the fact that every time I've been to the Ocala, I've come home with a ton of ticks.
well, because that's our free gift to tourists. If you want a free gift, we'll give you all the ticks you want. You know?
I just seem to be and that's the one thing I'm scared of is ticks and pink eye.
You know?
And
If you were born and
I have
raised
not
here,
gotten
you don't
pink
get
eye
ticks.
from the Ocala, but every time I've been looking to follow up on some story that I've heard, I come home and I was like, I know the first thing I need to do is check for ticks. It's
Yeah,
like,
well, if you're born and raised here, you don't get ticks. I'm just
I
saying.
definitely don't have that Florida right now.
Tim, what say you?
Yeah, we have a lot of stuff here in Florida, so you definitely get out there, but also be safe about it. Wearing snake boots, having stuff to protect you from the mosquitoes, the chiggers, everything like that, the ticks. But I do believe that they get along with the animals that are out there because we have black bears, panthers, alligators, snakes, bobcats. There's a lot out there that want to bite you, want to eat you. And I believe they get along just fine with whatever's out there, whatever's in their areas. They do not seem to be aggressive in our areas, from what I see too. They don't seem to want to hurt and kill people. You might get hit with infrasound from time to time, but other than that, they don't really seem to be aggressive.
Yeah, I agree, because if I've had things thrown, you probably had things thrown.
We've had things thrown at us.
If a rock is thrown at you, that doesn't necessarily mean it's aggressive behavior. It could be just, I want your attention. Hey, I'm over here. Or, I want to look at your face, so turn around. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it could be just saying I'm here.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, like X's and stuff like that. We come up with our own human interpretation of what an X is, okay? That doesn't necessarily mean an X means don't go here or stop. It could mean something totally different. See what I'm saying? A prime example is the swastika. We know it's a horrible symbol, but original, it was an Egyptian sign that didn't mean that. See what I'm saying? It's your interpretation of what it is. We interpret an X as stop or don't go there or whatever. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's what it means to them. We don't know what it means. You know what I mean? Like I said, you know, we're always out there looking for the answers. That's the motivator right there. That's the motivator.
It's going to take all of us working together, finding all this stuff to really figure out what's going on out there.
It's a collaborative effort. Anything to add on the...
I do, because I'm going to turn the question around a little bit, and then if I can ask a question, which I've always wanted to know the answer to it, and so you guys were just talking about like how to create that balance, and how does skunk ape or other type of Bigfoot type creatures, how do they create a balance with all the other cryptids that are around? Because there doesn't seem to be a place that has a high number of reportings of skunk ape or Bigfoot or Sasquatch that doesn't also have a high number of thunderbirds, or if you talk about the Ocala, you've got Coyote Woman, Mossman, you've got the Stikini, probably the most dominant one. How do they deal with that? Like, and what I'd like to know from you guys, because I've never had a really good answer to this, is how do you guys deal with the other cryptids that are constantly popping up in the same exact areas that you have these Bigfoot sightings, and how do you differentiate between them, and are you so focused on your cryptid that you allow the other ones to kind of go on their way, or is it like anything that's there is prime game? Because you were talking about when you're looking for a snake, you're looking for a snake. Well, if you're looking for a Stikini, and if you guys don't know what a Stikini is, it's a like 9-foot tall Seminole witch vampire owl seen in this area. So come talk to me about it, but it's like, how do you deal with those things in the same areas?
Well, my short answer, my plate is full with Sasquatch. I'm not adding anything else on that plate.
Yeah, that sounds like a great conversation to have throughout the day. We've got 5 minutes, so we've got to make way for the incomparable Renee Holland coming up shortly. But really quickly, I want to go down the line and I want you guys to give me one thing as far as technology that's come out, say in the last 5 or 10 years, maybe it's yesterday, that has changed the game for you as far as research. Is there one piece of equipment, whether it be LiDAR, 3D scanning, or you just got a thermal imager, anything that's sticking out? Let's get one thing in from everybody before we wrap up.
So personally, I'm an old guy, so I'm really low tech. But recently, I just got a therm, and I just love the snot out of it. I mean, I have so much fun with it, and I believe I see things, and then I run over, and it's a tree stump. But I just love my therm. So that's my new technology.
Mike, what about you?
I would definitely say the 3D scanning has been changing the game. It's big time, especially with me. Like, how cool! I had Dr. Meldrum take one of my scans and put it on his page. It was awesome. That wouldn't have happened if they weren't being able to zoom in and move and prove that what we're showing is what we're showing.
He's got some cool pictures, folks. You need to go by the table afterwards and see that. What about you, John?
I don't have direct access to it, but I think something we're going to see that'll change everything is environmental DNA testing. I've worked with it in the water, but now they're working with it mostly on land, and that picks up traces of things. And we're finding in those traces what's there and what's not there. And believe it or not, what's not there is telling us a big picture right now. There's something out there. And we just don't know exactly what it is. And I think environmental DNA is going to be a very good tool in that.
Darby Orcutt is doing some fantastic stuff in my home state of North Carolina at NC State. You guys look into Darby. He's doing a lot of great stuff with DNA. Richard, what's changed the game for you, man?
My newest toy is the Picasso Seymour 200. I'm playing with it now. I really enjoy it because it has what they call daytime night vision. So midnight will look like this room, and it's in color. I can see your shirt color, I can see your hat color, and it uses AI technology. So AI is definitely something that's hurting research, but this is one of those rare cases where AI is actually helping research. I really like the toy. I do have it at the booth if anybody wants to look at it. But I think it's the start of a change where there's going to be some benefits.
I agree. Tim, what about you?
Yeah, with me, it started with quantum physics. So quantum physics is, if you start looking into it, checking into it, you can see it can be kind of basic. You can get a basic understanding of it. But because of quantum physics, we now have the thermal cameras. Stuff like that was invented because of the infrared. So now we have tools like the thermal cameras. We have a lot of other stuff, a lot of understanding. So I think that's going to be a big game changer here moving forward.
What about you, Chris? You get the last word, sir.
I have no equipment.
There you have it, folks. Chris says mic dropped with no equipment. The great thing about this is the conversation is ending for us now, but we all have booths over right on Speaker Row. I'm down there. If you want a copy of the book, you want to come by and see some of the patches I got, just come by and tell me a story, say hello. All of these guys have booths over there. The conversation can go on all day long. We'd love to come talk to you guys. Thank you so much for listening to us. We appreciate your attention.
Happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day.